Oh, yeah.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the W Sports Podcast live. And here we are at the end of the college football regular season. And, Jimothy, myself, and why did I say Jimothy? Who cares? And Tubby is back again to bring you all the news and notes when it comes to the college football, the professional football world. And, of course, we're going to have baseball bonus content at the end. But welcome back, Tubby. You ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm slightly sad.
Me too.
College
Slightly
football
sad
season.
because it's the end of the regular season or what?
Yeah, it's because college football season's almost over.
I know. I'm hearing you. It's this weird feeling of like, didn't it just start?
Right? Yeah. Feels like we should have another 10 weeks of this.
Yeah, I know. It does. It puts into perspective how short the college football season is in comparison to the NFL.
Yeah.
To be, except for maybe a game or two for your team. I didn't hit record. Did you hit record?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we're gonna redo it. So everyone, this is gonna be take two. You're gonna love it because we're gonna do the bonus content at the end. So I'm gonna redo the intro here real quick. So you ready? I'm rusty. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast live on YouTube as we speak right now. Jimothy, of course, here alongside me, as always, is the one and only Tubby.
What is up?
Tubby, it's the end of the college football season.
Yeah.
And I know we're sad, correct?
Very sad. Very sad.
Yeah. In morning, I'm wearing a color that I hate, but my wife says it looks good on me, so I'm wearing it.
I mean, you're supporting the two teams, I guess, for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, go Big 12. Yeah, but it's just an Adidas logo. I mean, there's no other logo on it. That's all it is, but it does feel weird wearing it. It's one that I wouldn't wear a couple weeks ago after the game. But yeah, so college football world, the regular season is over. This weekend is going to be conference championship games, which should be an exciting week. We just had rivalry weekend for the most part overall. Kind of anticlimactic overall. I mean, there were some close games, but I think the overall theme that I saw was every single game that could have been insanely explosive and just completely transformed the college football playoff didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of chance for a lot of just mix up in college football this weekend, and none of it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you had FSU, could they lose to Florida, and possibly in their college football playoff hopes. The whole Alabama Auburn situation, Oklahoma State BYU, Big 12 implications there, and just none of it. Washington State was another one. Ended on the last second field goal. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like you had all this opportunity for all this upset, and none of it happened.
Yeah,
which kind of
really
stinks. Yeah.
Yeah. When it looks like the absolute chaos. And we'll get into some of the games. It just didn't happen this year, but that's college football. And again, it's one of those things that rivalries at the very end of the season. That's why these games are so crazy. Oregon State, that could have been closer. It wasn't. But even last year, they beat Oregon. And then Washington State reeling after just so many losses in a row, other than I think they beat Colorado last week. And to come into this game and to play Washington so close, enough to where Michael Penix can't even watch at the end of the game. He just can't. But also to get to the end of the year, and I think there are 5 teams that are technically undefeated still. Maybe
I think so.
Because Liberty is the 5th, correct? No.
Yeah.
And James Madison was double overtime game from also being undefeated. And I don't remember the last time we had this many undefeated teams in a season. This is crazy.
One great thing about this weekend was that James Madison is now bowl eligible.
I did see that. That was good.
Yeah, good job, South Carolina, losing like you needed to, because you didn't deserve to be in a playoff, a bowl game this year at all. So, yeah, I think at least one good thing came out of the weekend. If for some of us, just because they deserve to be in a bowl game because you are 11-1. The rules where you have to miss out on conference championships or bowl games for the first couple of seasons that you move up, I think is absolutely dumb.
It's just the NCAA being dumb, and they're really good at being dumb.
Yeah, I mean, what's the purpose in this?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know, man. There isn't. There just isn't.
Yeah, like James Madison's been destroying the FCS, so they're going to move up to the FBS and automatically be that good.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, they are, but it is a different type of competition from FCS to FBS, even if it is at, one of the lower conferences. But I don't understand the whole. Well, you got to wait 2 years before you can be in the postseason.
Thankfully, they got it corrected. That's the huge part.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick review of this last week and some of the big games. Georgia, they ended up winning by 8 over Georgia Tech. Again, a rivalry that you didn't expect to see this close. And yes, I know that Georgia started to pull away in the third quarter, but they never really had. I mean, they had control, but they never really had this game on lockdown. And is this anything that you're seeing going into the conference championship week that you're nervous about with this team?
No, not really. I just feel like it's one of those rivalry games where Georgia Tech is significantly improved compared to what they were last year. Haynes King has went to Georgia Tech. I don't know who the new head coach is and stuff like that, but whoever they are, they have turned this team around pretty quick over the last year compared to what they were, and having to transition from that still somewhat of a option type offense and to a more of a pro style spread type offense, and they are significantly improved. They beat a couple teams in the ACC that they probably shouldn't have beat this year compared to what they were last year. So I think part of it has to do, they may have looked a little bit forward going, okay, we got Alabama next week. And part of it is that it is just a rivalry game where a lot of times these rivalry games, you take the record and you throw them out the window because you never know what could happen in some of these games.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why you also play the games. I mean, it's the best that Georgia Tech has done since 2018. That year they went 7-5, lost a bowl game. So this is a big turnaround for them. I think you're 100% right on that. And you got to get away from the triple option, people. We got to get away from it. You don't have to go spread, no huddle offense, but you got to do something different. And the one thing I will say about this is Georgia ran the ball so well. The passing game, this was not a pass-happy game for this Georgia Tech. But did Georgia show any, they say, chinks in the armor against the run game? I mean, they just got pounded over 200 yards rushing in this game, and then 40-plus rush attempts, a couple rushing touchdowns. Anything that you're worried about with it?
Say that has been, I think, their one, I guess, somewhat flaw, you could say, for the season is the run defense hasn't been as dominant as it has been the last few years. I mean, look at the Auburn game. Auburn goes for 200 yards, and we're in the fourth quarter, a good portion through that, and we're looking at it going, wow, Auburn's going to upset Georgia. And Bowers, has the incredible last 7 minutes of the game where he was unstoppable, and they go down, they score a couple times, win that ball game. But they have shown some inability at times against really good run offenses to not be able to slow them down. So I think that is going to be their biggest worry if somehow, say they do get Michigan in the, college football playoffs at some point. That could be a big problem for them with Michigan having Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and a really good offensive line, even with Mike Zinter out, after he broke his leg at, Ohio State game. So I think there is a little bit of, a chink in the armor somewhere is there that the run defense isn't quite as stout as it has been the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the team that they're going to be playing. Had a miracle happen this last weekend. One of the worst defensive play calls. I told you, I think, since that Minnesota Vikings defensive end. Was it the Minnesota Vikings? Is that the one that we're talking about in the playoffs? Leslie Frazier, absolute boneheaded plays like that he did. Here I am on this game, and I'm thinking, they're like, how many are they going to drop? And they call a timeout, and they ended up dropping it. Technically, I'm going to say 8.5 because they had the spy, which is the stupidest thing to do in that thing. If you're going to do that, play blitz. Don't know how anybody gets behind your corners and how it's one-on-one coverage somehow. I mean, you had 8 guys back there. It was a terrible call. Auburn should have won this game. So Alabama, what we're talking about, they did have over almost 200 yards rushing and ran the ball 44 times. But outside of Jalen Milroe, this team had about 100. He had 107, other 192. So this team is not an effective run team. So maybe, this upcoming weekend, I think a lot of people are going to be or leaning Alabama until this last game. Are you still leaning Georgia, or are you still saying that, I don't know, there's some magic with this Nick Saban team right now, as we just saw?
Man, I think I'm still leaning Nick Saban. I was leaning Nick Saban before this weekend. Alabama. There's just something. Everyone kind of counted them out at the beginning of the year. They struggled really bad, and they played some bad football against South Florida. They lose to Texas. They just kind of struggled out the gate, and then it seems like Milroe started getting his footing, and he still wasn't playing great through some of these games, but they were winning. Texas A&M, the Tennessee games. He wasn't playing great, but you're like, man, there's still something there that he's still able to elevate them enough to get them. Their defense has played significantly better, down the stretch than it did early on in the season. There's just, I don't know, there's something about them that I feel like it's hard to count them out right now. And I think Milroe's legs are going to be the biggest X factor in this game is, can you stop him from running the football? Because if you can't, you're giving them essentially their run offense. Like you said, run game isn't really there because the offensive line is pretty putrid. But Milroe is still able to make these plays with his legs and his arm, especially in these deep passes. But going back to the Auburn thing, it made no sense because they had double coverage in the middle of the field, in the end zone. They double covered every guy inside the numbers, but had single coverage on the outside. And Milroe was smart because he recognized it. He saw, okay, they've only got one guy on each side. I could throw it out there. I'd much rather go man coverage than double coverage in the middle. I'll give my guy every opportunity. And the spy makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's fourth and
something. Come on.
It's basically 4th and 31.
It is, yeah.
Why have a spy? Because you got guys in the end zone. So if he takes off running, you've got 8-9 guys back there to tackle him. So why have him there if he's just going to stand there? Yeah, at least have him rush the passer to put something on him. But the fact that you rush 2 guys and you just let him sit back there for 10 seconds and kind of decide what he wants to do and goes, oh wait, we got single coverage. I'll throw it to the corner and hopefully my guy makes the play. And his guy made the play, and Auburn flushed one down the toilet on that one.
Yeah, that's my thing too. On that is, I'm a fan of at least bringing 4, but make it go quick. If he scrambles, all right, but he's got to go 31 yards. He's just one attempt, and if he's scrambling, there's probably not going to be pass interference. There's a lot of negative things that could happen, and I don't know. It's Auburn. 5-7 teams make 5-7 mistakes. That's just the thing. And looking back at Georgia in this upcoming weekend, we'll get to predictions here soon. The only other time I really seen them play a team that has a running quarterback was Auburn, and like we said in that game, they nearly lost that one. So I think we'll get to predictions here soon, but I think that this is going to be one of the better games this upcoming weekend. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on to the game, which I don't know. I've seen some incredible games, with this rivalry. This one didn't feel the same to me. I know it was a close game. I know there were some big swings, but it just felt, I don't know,
flat.
Yeah, that's the right word. I literally, for everybody listening, we did not talk about this, didn't text about this at all. This was just my feeling. You're the same way.
Yeah, it was like you look at the score and you see the situation at the end of the game, and it wasn't like you're like, man, this is got my attention, super exciting game. It was just kind of like, it's happening. Like, it's kind of boring what's going on. Yeah. And I mean, things fell the way that we expected them to. It was a much closer game than I think I expected. McCord played better than really I expected. I think the one interception, the first one, wasn't his fault. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of gave up on the route once he saw that corner. Will Johnson jumped in front of, jumped the route. He just kind of stopped. And you got to at least try to play through the defender to make sure he doesn't come across your face and pick it off at that point. That last one, he got hit and floated in the air. McCord actually
throw it. I mean, because if he gets sacked, the game's over. Yeah,
and so McCord actually played better than I expected.
Yeah, 18 and 30. He had, like you said, the 2 picks, but and they really were not an explosive team. This was an offense that needs to have explosive plays, and Michigan's defense held them in check enough to just say you got to grind it out, and they did. They put themselves in a position to have a chance to win. But JJ McCarthy, 16 to 20, 140 yards wasn't a huge deal. But Corum again, 2 touchdowns, 4 yards of carry. I mean, whoever wins the running game wins this game, and Michigan did that again.
I'd say there was two big factors: was the turnover and the time of possession. And those are two big things you need to win big games like that. And they beat them 7 minutes of time of possession and had the 2 turnovers. It's just like I said, Michigan didn't play good. Really, they did not play good. Yeah. But their defense, I will give my hats off to Jim Knowles for the turnaround from last year with this defense to this year. That this team is better than I thought they were going into this game. I really thought it was going to be another Michigan blowout, but the defense kept them in this game most of the game. They just weren't able to get it going offensive wise because Michigan's defense is that good. I mean, that run game from Ohio State was non-existent.
Yeah, it definitely was non-existent. There was a former running back that of Ohio State that has been a bunch. I don't know, bro. You got to get out of it. Like, he talked to Arch Manning about coming there. I'm like, dude, calm down, stop.
Yeah.
I remember Maurice Clarett, right? I remember that, and he was really good. But man, I don't think when people think of Ohio State running back right now, they're thinking of him. Not that he was bad; he was really, really good. Okay.
Yeah, no, he was.
Come on, man, you're not going to get Arch Manning. He's there at Texas. He's not.
And plus, I'm not taking advice from Maurice Clarett. I'm sorry. You tried to leave college a year early because you were going to test the NFL and push them to make a decision on the eligibility, and they didn't, and you got left out to dry. You had your shot with Denver in the NFL. I don't think I'm going to take take life advice from that guy if I'm Arch Manning or other people. Yeah. Just saying. No offense to the guy. You were a great college football player, but I'm not taking life advice from that.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna between these two teams, let's say they both win this upcoming weekend, after we predict these games, Florida State or Washington, who should get in the playoff? If it is true.
Well, I would think that if both of them win, they're both in because they will. Just because I feel like it is hard to keep an undefeated conference champion out, especially if, say, there is something with Alabama and Georgia. Alabama upsets Georgia. Even though we think Georgia is one of the best teams in college football, it's hard to keep Florida State out. And I know that they're probably just going to get absolutely mauled in the playoffs, but you have to give them something for being undefeated and winning 2 games. And one will be against a ranked team. And one was a big rivalry in the swamp with the backup quarterback, but they didn't look good.
They didn't look good. They can't run the ball. I mean, you talk about this team against Georgia. Just if they can't run the ball, and Tate is not a scramble. I mean, all the things point to this game being a blowout, not in a good way at all. And so that's why I would say, if I'm seeing this on paper, especially depending on what it looks like this weekend, and it all could play out on its own and not have to worry about it, but if it's a one-loss Texas team or if it's this team, I think both teams will get crushed by Georgia. But I would I think at least Texas can put up a better fight, and they've proven that they can. If they can prove that they can do that against the SEC with the Alabama win. As far as I know, it's a different Alabama team, but they did do it. So to me, I think this was a showing of this Florida State team is going to miss Jordan Travis, and I think they may miss that opportunity for the playoff because of it.
Yeah,
and I don't understand because the goal is the committee is the 4 best teams.
Yeah,
what's in position?
Yeah, quarterback, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I think
it's unpopular opinion.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is but I totally 100% agree with you. I think that if we're talking about the 4 best teams and Michigan wins and say Washington wins and Alabama beats Georgia, I still feel like Georgia deserves to be in there because you're going to tell me that a team that is undefeated up until then loses 1 game in the SEC championship to one of the hottest teams in college football right now, and you're going to knock them out of the playoffs for FSU, who's without their starting quarterback and maybe just barely beats Louisville or even Texas. Because I honestly, the strength of schedule thing that everything Texas is putting out there, I don't think that they are that good of a team. I don't think they're in the discussion with that. Do I think that they could beat FSU right now? Yeah, right now, absolutely. Without Jordan Travis, for sure. But like we said, you did beat Alabama, so you get points there. But you beat Alabama when they were playing the worst football they have been playing for the last 13 years. And You barely beat Wyoming. You barely beat Kansas. Or you beat Kansas, but it was with the backup quarterback. You barely beat Houston. You barely beat Kansas State. You have just played good enough to get the wins, which is great. You got the wins, but you haven't played good football.
Yeah, this game, 57-7, massive blowout. There is their biggest win in the Big 12 in quite some time. And I was like, oh, I like that it's against Texas Tech and not Oklahoma anymore. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, you played good against Texas Tech.
A pick six and a kickoff. Yeah. I mean, it's snowball. I mean, that's part of the game, which, credit where credit's due. But I just don't think – I don't think Quinn Ewers is the quarterback for it. Baxter got hurt. I think he's not hurt now going forward. Yeah. But, you worry about that a little bit. But Texas is the one team, if Oregon doesn't beat Washington, that I think should be in over Florida State, just if you want to have the best 4 teams. Otherwise, just put Oregon in there. Honestly, I think Oregon is better than Washington, and I think once we get to predictions, we'll see that. But Oregon handled business against Oregon State. And that was a good Oregon State team that, unfortunately, this year, I think the big loss that they're going to look back on right now is that Washington State loss earlier in the year. And they're like, man, if we had that one, could have been a different story. Because lost to Arizona when Arizona won again this weekend. And here's my thing. I think next year, him and Sanders out of Colorado are going to steal the Big 12.
Watch out for Utah. You got Cam Rising coming back now.
Yeah, I know. Like 8th year. Is it 8th?
Yeah.
Is it 8th year? Which isn't even.
Yeah, 8th year. 2016. He was Tom Herman's 2nd year at Texas.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. So who would you rather have, Sanders or Fafita?
I mean, Fafita, you can't take away from what Fafita has done. And it's nothing against Sanders, but right now, if we're talking right now, give me Fafita. But if we're talking as a whole team, I'll take Arizona because I feel like they have a more complete team than Colorado does at this point. And they proved it, a couple weeks ago. They proved it and smashed Colorado. But yeah, no, I don't know. Fafita he just kind of snuck up on everyone.
He's a baller, man. Ever since he came in, he just keeps sneaking in the podcast, and he's becoming a fan.
I know, right? Noah Fafita, man, I'm gonna hit up his DMs and be like, "Hey, you want to come on to the W podcast because we're probably some of your biggest fans."
We've been shouting you out for a while.
Yeah,
when you came in, thank you for beating. Did they beat Caleb Williams, or they almost did?
They almost did. That's almost did.
One of the games I don't need to talk about a whole lot, break it down, but K-State, Iowa State, this snow Farmageddon, cool. If you saw it.
Yeah.
It's a great name. All that snow, and it was 42-35. What in the world?
I know, right? I know. You're like, oh, it's snow. It's going to be a low-scoring game. No, it was one of the higher-scoring games of the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Any of the other games that you want to hit real quick before maybe we start breaking down some of the new coaching hires that there are out there? There's a crazy stat I got to throw out there. Heisman stuff. We can get into all that, but just any of the games from this weekend you want to hit before we go into some more of the notes.
I got one thing to say is that I just like any team that is mascot is the Cougars now. We had 2 Cougars back-to-back weeks, had OSU on the ropes, and they failed. Way to go. I just like all of you now.
Yeah. And here's the problem with BYU. That quarterback, Resnick, he is one of the worst fundamental quarterbacks I've seen in a while. Like, he is not accurate. He's too quick. Oh, he is so bad. He can scramble. I'm sure he was good in high school. Not good now. Not a Power 5 quarterback.
He was the number 1 JUCO quarterback last year.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, when they got up, I was like, I'm not confident. We saw Oklahoma State do this against a better, I think, Houston team for the most part, offensive wise. And second half started, and they just OSU figured out, well, we can't run the ball, but we can throw at will on this defense, and that's exactly what they did. It was heartbreaking, to say the least.
Yeah, this is a BYU team that I think ultimately really did disappoint. And late in a couple of these episodes during bowl season, we're going to look back on the season, and we'll talk about the biggest disappointments or biggest surprise seasons, those kind of things, surprise players. But looking at this is going to be the championship weekend, so there's going to be some really big games. Let's hit those first before we hit the news of the head coaching, because the coaching carousel has it started and it is rolling real quick. So also welcome to the show. Ricky, thanks for coming back. Boomer Shooter. Love that. I know we are very disappointed in the Cougars. Couldn't hold on to it. And when it was 24-6, I saw the first drive of the Cowboys. I was like, they're gonna be in control of this one.
Yep.
And that last play, the fumble was brutal.
I know.
So really disappointing. Really disappointing. But all right, so let's look at this weekend. We'll start with the very first game. New Mexico State. I know you guys thought we were going to skip it. We ain't skipping it. Conference USA. New Mexico State versus Liberty. 12-0 versus New Mexico State 10-3. Who you got?
I mean, give me Jamie Chadwell and the Liberty. I mean, that offense is high powered. Willie Korn. That's a offensive coordinator name to watch out for some of these bigger schools. But yeah, that's a high-powered offense. I feel like it's going to be too much offense for New Mexico State, even though New Mexico State did just beat Auburn a couple weeks ago.
Alabama almost lost, so therefore, no. Keep going down that road, but I think you're right. They have been rolling absolutely, but I'm going to just go against the grain because I like the idea of New Mexico State somehow managing to get 11 wins going into bowl season. I think it would be absolutely incredible. New Mexico State, their only loss in conference play was that against Hawaii? Is that right?
I don't know.
Liberty. They played early this year. Sorry.
Liberty,
they won 33-17 early this year, but that was early in the season. I think it's a comeback story. So in Vegas, the final actual Pac-12 championship game this weekend, we got probably going to be number 4 and number 5, Oregon and Washington. Who do you got in this game?
I mean, the crazy thing is that Oregon opens as a 9.5-point favorite right now, which is
9.5.
Pretty surprising. I mean, I think Oregon should be favored because I do think Oregon wins this game. The way Washington's played over the last few weeks hasn't been great football.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo Nix and that offense and that defense have really clicked since that loss to Washington. And people go, oh, well, they haven't really played a whole lot of teams. I don't care who they're playing. If they're beating them as bad as they have been beating them, that shows that you are a good team because you're not playing down to competition.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the way Bo Nix is played right now, that offense is so high-powered. I feel like they're going to get revenge and potentially punch their ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah. Since that game that they played against each other, Michael Penix has one game with a QBR over 90. He has 2 in the 80s. And then Bo Nix, since that game, has 4 games. And he's been consistently really good. So I think you're right. He's rolling on really well right now. And Michael Penix does seem a little bit off his completion percentage. Mm-hmm. Each of the last 3 games has been in the 50s or 40s. And the other game before that was in the 50s, besides the USC game being at 73, because that defense is absolute trash.
And then you look at the Arizona State game too.
Yeah.
I mean, played absolutely awful in that game. Yeah, they really just haven't played good football. They have snuck by with some wins,
mm-hmm.
but they just haven't played good football, and they're lucky they're undefeated right now.
I think Oregon wins. I think 9.5 is pushing it, but I mean, if it was a 2-point game, I don't think anybody would be surprised. So I would also take Oregon, despite the fact that I would love to see Washington go undefeated and make the playoff. But Oregon, I think, takes this one. Is that what you said as well?
Yeah. I think Oregon's just too high powered right now.
All right, and then the one that no one cares about, Texas, Oklahoma State. Oh gosh, man, this is 2 teams that I don't want to go for. So, and it's not like there's another game I can watch either. This is the one that's on at 11 o'clock on Saturday. So,
have they?
What's 14.5?
14.5. I feel like it's going to be a. I don't know. I shouldn't say that just because Texas plays down to everyone, except for Texas Tech last week, and I feel like that was because they had a chip on their shoulder because Yorkman at the beginning of the year was like, oh, well, I'm going to be at that game down in Austin, and I hope Texas Tech, I'm going to be rooting for them, and hopefully they beat Texas. I think they had a chip on the shoulder because they literally played that clip in the middle of the game on the Jumbotron. So I think Texas wins. I think it's probably closer than the 14 says, just because, like I said, Texas seems to play down to everyone. And you never know. If Ollie Gordon can get rolling and they stick to the run game, shorten the clock, give Texas less possessions, I still think Texas wins, but I think it's going to be close, and I don't think it'll be convincing enough to get Texas into the playoffs.
Wow. There you go. I mean, okay, well, we're going to get to the predictions on that part too, but all right, so in the last couple of games, Alan Bowman for Oklahoma State has been not good since Oklahoma. His QBR 37, 68, and 46. He has 2 touchdowns passing. And how many interceptions do you think he's got?
7.
6 interceptions. I think that's going to cost him. I don't think Oklahoma State can win this game, especially being a neutral site in Texas. I think Oklahoma State fans will travel a little bit better than they showed up for the game this last week. I know the weather was bad, but come on.
Dude, come on.
You just showed up in the same weather.
Like, I mean, you literally had
your night.
Yeah, your senior night and your season right there in that game. And you can't even fill half the stadium? Yeah. I mean, that's pitiful, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Come on now. But hey, good job, Big 12. I think, Texas wins this one for sure. Ricky in the chat, I'm going to put this up real quick. OK State is trash. Doesn't deserve to be in the game. Oh, you should have known. I know. Yeah. And here's the thing. Oh, you can't say nothing because they didn't win the game. Although, Oklahoma State might be there a little bit of help from a no call, but still, you should have won the game.
Yep.
Oh, you should have lost Kansas either. So, you put themselves in this position. So, all right, let's move on to the big game, SEC championship game. We got Alabama versus Georgia. The game's in Georgia in Atlanta, but I think Alabama fans are going to travel just fine. This game opens up with Georgia as a 6-point favorite. Do you got Georgia winning?
Man, this is one I'm so conflicted on right now because I feel like Alabama, even with the hiccup, almost hiccup with Auburn, it is the Iron Bowl. That game is always close, and there's always something crazy that happens in that game where it flips it and you have the basically fourth and 31.
Yep.
And maybe that's enough more momentum for Alabama to carry into this game. I'm going to take Alabama over Georgia, but I think it's going to be close. And I hate that because one of my good friends, Colby, he is a Georgia fan, and I hope for them that they win for him, but man, I just feel like there's something about this. Everyone counted Nick Saban in this Alabama team out, and we were 2 of them.
Yep.
we were there. We thought at the beginning of the year.
I think Nick Saban listened to the podcast and he realized I can't do the same offense that I've done the last couple of years. I have to go more smash mouth, and I have to use the strengths that Jalen has, because trying Ty Simpson and whoever the heck the other guy was, don't even remember anymore.
Tyler Buchner.
Both of those guys were awful, and I think that was the mind shift change that helped them become the team that they are now, that has a chance to beat Georgia. But I'm picking Georgia. Until they lose, I got to pick Georgia. This is where I'm at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of, for me, it's just, I think it's going to be close. I think we could be talking about, final second field goal or something, because it is 2 very well-known opponents. They know each other so well. But I think the one big difference is that this is a type of offense that Alabama doesn't run, that Georgia's not going to be used to. And I think that might give them a slight edge. And like you said, that game where they played Ty Simpson and Tyler Buchner, I think was probably one of the most genius things for Nick Saban for that season, because if he throws Milroe in there and, kind of plays all 3 and they all 3 stink, he doesn't go, well, who am I going to play? He keeps Milroe out of that game and realizes, well, Milroe gives me my best chance because of his legs. And those legs have been the biggest X factor for them since then throughout the season. And I think it might be the X factor for them in this game against Georgia.
Okay, I like it. We're going to move on to 2 teams in the AAC, American Athletic Conference. SMU at 10-2. Y'all, they played Oklahoma, and everyone said this team is terrible. Look at them now. Okay,
yeah, right.
Rice, Texas. I'm just saying. Versus Tulane. Tulane is ranked 23 right now. Who do you got in this game?
Give me Michael Platt and Tulane.
All right, I'm going SMU. Michael Platt, and then they just haven't been clicking and rolling the same way SMU has on offense. I think that's going to be the big thing.
I don't know. Until someone can beat Tulane in that conference.
It's true. Tulane's only loss this year was to Ole Miss.
Yeah. And that was without Michael Platt.
I know. So yeah, Platt's been good. He's a top 30 QBR, 21 touchdowns, 4 picks, 2,100 yards. So junior, he can come back next year. Go figure. So watch out, everybody. Tulane.
Oklahoma, watch out.
Oh, is they playing? Oh, they are playing them again. Dadgummit, man. They never.
Yeah, Oklahoma's schedule next year is
rough.
Rough.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got Michigan versus Iowa. Over under is at 35.5. It's disgusting. Probably going to hit the under on that one. Here's the thing. The over under is 35.5. Michigan's favored by 23 points. I can't even do the math on it. How do you make that work?
Oh man. I mean, we saw it last week. Iowa, what was it? Iowa, Nebraska. The over under was 23.5. Or no, it was 24.5.
Hit 23.
And they hit 23. You can't even get that. I mean, yeah. No, this is Michigan, and I think they may cover the spread by themselves. As good as Iowa's defense is, they may cover the spread by themselves because we know Iowa's offense will not be able to move the football. That defense will be on the field a lot, and it's Michigan by a million.
Michigan by a million. I do think. I mean, if it's close, it's only because Michigan just can't turn the ball over too many times, and that just is something that they have not done this year. Is turn the ball over too much. I think you're right. I think Michigan wins this. 3 possessions, no problem. Hits the over, maybe. I mean, that's if it's. I could see this being 28-7 and still hitting the under. I'm like, well, we covered, right? Technically, yeah. So, it'd be a gross game, but again, this is why divisions matter. We talked about it last week because otherwise you just see Ohio State versus Michigan again, and it'd be weird, and you just no. All right, last game, Louisville versus Florida State. Louisville's definitely going to drop in the rankings, but they did lose to Kentucky again. Go figure. And Florida State at undefeated, playing for everything they can so they can still make the playoff. Who you got?
Man, I don't know this one. Honestly, this FSU team, they didn't play good against Florida, but yeah, I will say that was a conference, or I mean, a rivalry game in the swamp, which can be tough. But what does Rodmaker have? Is he good enough to get you that win? Can you run the ball with Benson? Because you have 2 extremely dynamic wide receivers in Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman on that team. And if you can just find the way to get the ball to Keon Coleman, the guy who makes plays himself, I'm gonna take FSU. I think they complete the unbeaten season, and they put the college football playoff committee in a spot where they have to decide.
I mean, yeah, just so far, based off what we predicted here, is you got Georgia for sure, Michigan for sure. Those guys are locked in it, assuming they both win. And then,
if they both win.
Yeah, if they both win. And then you're like, okay, so we both said Oregon over Washington. And so that's a 1-loss Oregon team that would jump up in there, probably. And then you're like Florida State or a 1-loss Texas team. It is a tough spot to be in. But it looks like it's almost 5 teams, unless a lot of chaos happens and Alabama sneaks in. Or somehow, as an Ohio State fan out there, would you think that there's any way that they can sneak back into the playoff if a lot of chaos happens? I
feel like there's no chance. AP poll put them a rank ahead of Texas, but you also got to think about it this way: is that they may be ranked ahead of them now, but Texas will win that conference championship game, and it will automatically give them a leg up over Ohio State. So I feel like there's really no shot unless, honestly, I don't know if there's a scenario I could come up with where I could go, they would have a chance if this, and this happened. I guess tomorrow will be more telltale of, how they rank it. If they somehow put Ohio State at 5 instead of 6 and put them ahead of Oregon and go, well, maybe a couple other teams, FSU loses, Washington, or, Oregon beats Washington, Michigan somehow loses to Iowa, and say Texas loses to Oklahoma State. Maybe there's enough chaos there that they may go, well, they're good enough, we'll throw them in the 4th. I still don't think there's much of a chance. I feel like your shot was right there with Michigan, and whoever won that game was locked in. The other one, more than likely, was on the outside loop.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a close game. It's a toss-up is what I have for Florida State Louisville. I think it could be a last-second field goal. I think the over-unders are like 48. I think it's not going to be as high-scoring as we think. Louisville, looking at this season, this is a team that easily could be undefeated right now. That Pitt game is the one that's going to eat them away, because if they were undefeated, I mean, they would be knocking on the door to make a championship game here, or a playoff game. So I just don't trust the quarterback there, and so I fear that it's going to be too much to overcome. We did just see an egg by Louisville, but I think it's going to be a toss up. And give me the upset with Louisville taking this one, just because I don't trust the quarterback. But hopefully, I'm eating my words, and Florida State does win, just to continue on, like you said, to put them in the bind.
Yeah, I want to see the chaos.
I want to see. That's what college football is all about.
Yeah, we're not in it. I want to see. I want to see everything. Just what is the college football playoff committee? How do they have these teams ranked? Yeah. Is going to be the interesting thing tomorrow.
Yeah,
because that could tell you a lot of what could happen at this point. Like if you drop Florida State to 5, I feel like no matter what, they have no shot. But if you keep them, or I shouldn't say 5, if you drop them to 6, because I've seen that where they're like, we right now without Jordan Travis, we think Oregon's better, which I absolutely agree. They drop them to 6, I think they have absolutely no shot at the playoffs, win or lose. But if they keep them there at 4 or 5, they have that shot.
Yeah.
If they go undefeated, because then it shows them, okay, we still believe that you're a good enough team because you have won every single game on your schedule.
Yeah. So we mentioned this team earlier, and I found, I put in the show notes, you may have seen it. Iowa was 10-2, and did you see how many total offensive yards they had on the year? Everyone's been talking about how that many games they've won by scoring how many few points, right? And it's the craziest thing. Well, guess what, everybody? They had less than 3,000 total yards the entire season. You want to know how many players had more than 3,000 yards this season?
Oh, there's a lot.
I can think of at least 20, and that's only 3,400 or more. I got a list right now. How many yards was Jalen Daniels responsible for?
Oh, was it 4,900 something?
40, nearly 5,000, nearly 2,000 yards, over 2,000 yards more than the entire Iowa offense. I don't know what they're doing over there, but they are not doing it right. I know they went 10-2.
Yeah.
Good Lord. There is a pathetic performance of offense to have less than 3,000 yards, and that's like averaging 260 yards a game.
And the thing is, the offense coordinator is Kirk Ferentz' son. So they put something into his contract at the end of last year, whenever everyone was calling for them to fire him because the offense has been so just absolutely abysmal the last few years, and that they had to average 25 points a game. They didn't do that. So more than likely after this game, we're going to see Brian Ferentz get fired. Kirk Ferentz is going to have to fire his son. At least, or demote him from offense coordinator, because he is a really good offensive line coach. That's where he was before. He was an incredible offensive line coach. Yeah, just demote him down to offensive line coach, hire you an offense coordinator who can actually draw up plays and score some offense.
Yeah, let me just say this. He coaches an offense like an offensive line coach. I just want to throw that out there. Nothing wrong with it, but it's not working out well. I mean, 10-2 is 10-2. But now when you have a defense that good and scheduled the way they had it. So
I mean, just think if you had just a decent offense, you're probably undefeated and maybe have a shot at the playoffs.
I know.
Because your defense is that good every year. Yeah. But your offense is so bad, you lose games like to Minnesota because you get a punt return taken off the board because they thought your guy Farrah caught it, but that was because your offense couldn't score. And luckily, you're like, oh, we won because, oh no, we thought he Farrah caught it, so we had to blow the play dead.
Yep. I mean, dude, that stat alone, I could not believe it. I was just curious. I was like, I wonder how many. Oh my gosh, it's worse than I thought. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll go over some of the coaching. Oh, did I miss something? I was gonna go cover.
Oh no, I've got. We can go ahead and do the coaches thing. I got one blind resume thing for us at the end of this.
Okay,
of this college football.
See how it goes. I'm excited for it. So, all right. So, biggest news: Texas A&M finally hires their head coach after we thought it was going to be Stoops. It is not, and you and I were texting about this. I think that's the right call. It shouldn't have been him, but you get Mike Elko.
Yeah.
Elko, right?
Yeah, Mike Elko.
Grade this: A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, F. What do you think?
Or complete? Let's see, because. This is my biggest. We text back and forth about the Mark Stoops thing. I feel like Mark Stoops has a better resume than Mike Elko does. Elko has done a great job with Duke and has turned them around. Absolutely. But the fans, and so way it sounds like Mark Stoops was hired. He was hired. The benefactors and the fans were in such uproar that they said, okay, never mind. He's not the coach. And then they go to Mike Elko. Well, they're basically the same guys, except for Mark Stoops has proven that he can build a decent team, a 10-win Kentucky team in the SEC with the resources he has.
Yes.
At least if you bring him to A&M and he's able to build that culture and everything he's built in Kentucky with the resources you have in A&M, I don't understand why they were so up in such big uproar about Mark Stoops, but they're so happy about Elko because he was the defense coordinator there at one point.
Yeah, I think I don't get it. His conference record, I know that he had some injuries, rarely, but still 9-7 in the ACC, and the ACC is not stacked right now. I don't know that this was the better hire. I think there was someone who was making a pretty big donation that has a pretty big influence on who's going to be. And like you said, not Mark Stoops. And Mark Stoops has a very similar conference record as Jimbo Fisher did in the SEC. But like you said, the resource allocation is a lot different there. So I mean,
look what he's built at Kentucky and where Kentucky was whenever he took Kentucky over. I mean, he's gotten wins over Florida when they hadn't beat Florida in like 30 years. That's what Mark Stoops has done. And like I said, we both didn't think that Stoops was the right guy anyway either, but I feel like he was more the right guy than Elko was because he's proven he can coach in the SEC as a head coach with a team like Kentucky and is able to build them up the way he has. And like I said, what could he have done with those resources? I'm surprised they went with either of those guys and maybe they just weren't able to lure some bigger name guy out. I know Lanning turned down the job. I know Kalen DeVore turned down the job. A couple other coaches supposedly turned down jobs, but I'm just surprised that you weren't able to throw enough money at someone like you did with Jimbo Fisher and still away a bigger name. Yeah.
Look at Oregon State head coach just left, which I think is crazy. Losing 2 straight games against 2 of the best teams in the conference. But he goes to Michigan State. Honestly, I think this move makes sense. Only for the fact that Oregon State's left in the Pac-12 with nothing else but Washington State. And this was a move about a career decision, not necessarily, I think, about a program, because Oregon State's going the right direction, and Michigan State is one of those programs that is an absolute dismay this year, much like Virginia was after last year's tragedy, and some of the other teams that are just not looking great. And this was like, man, I got to get out. I got to get out because I got to protect what we can do going forward.
Yeah, like I said, where they're at right now – with these programs, it's night and day. Oregon State is way better than Michigan State, but I feel like he's going to have more resources again at Michigan State than he would at Oregon State, just because really Oregon State, if anything, any sport you're really thinking about Oregon State being good at, it's usually baseball. They've been decent last few years, and I think Jonathan Smith is a great coach, and what he's able to do with this program and turn it around like he has. Yeah, he's just kind of left out in the dark. I mean, you have no conference affiliation really, and you're losing players and stuff entering the transfer portal now. Before he even left, I think it was just kind of one of those things where he's like, I got to figure something out that's better for me than what's going on right now at Oregon State.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the atmosphere is like in East Lansing. Isn't that where that's where Michigan State is? But Corvallis, where Oregon State is, beautiful, fun college town, great state school. I mean, really great area. So, I mean, he's leaving a tough college atmosphere for Michigan State, which I'm assuming is great. I mean, it's Big Ten. It's got a lot of history and all that kind of stuff and rivalries. But again, it totally makes sense. And we still don't know what the Pac-12 is going to look like next year. If it's a hybrid with a couple other schools, but I think it was a good business decision. We were dogging on Lebby all year long. This team still somehow put up numbers to be one of the top 5, top 10 in almost every offensive category. They just made some really crucial mistakes that cost them wins. This team should be undefeated easily and should be, walking into a potential playoff berth in the second year with Brent Venables, but they're not. So we're going to get our wish of having a new offensive coordinator next year, because Jeff Lebby is now headed to Mississippi State, a team that has no offense, hasn't had an offense in a while, and might be able to turn that team around. What do you think of this hire?
That's when I saw that position came open. That was the first name I thought of, was Jeff Lebby, because he kind of is somewhat in that Mike Leach, Art Briles, type system that they are known for the last few years before, there for a few years with Mike Leach down there at Mississippi State. I thought it's a good, I think, landing spot for him as his first head coaching job. Not, the biggest school, but a potential to, turn him around enough to maybe lead to a bigger coaching job down the line. He's just got a lot of work to do because your quarterback just entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, which, I mean, how good was this quarterback?
Will Rogers is a decent quarterback.
He's decent.
You look at, he's number 2 all-time passing yards in SEC and number 2 all-time passing touchdowns in SEC.
I am surprised by that. I didn't realize he was that high on the list.
Yeah.
Looking at this, though, I think it's. I mean, I would consider coming back just because. I mean, Levy's going to give you at least every opportunity to have really good numbers to improve your stock or whatever you want to do in your career if you're not going to hit the next level. Yeah, it's a good hire. I think he's going to. He already has ties to recruitment trails in the South and with Florida and with obviously Mississippi already being there once. So I think it'll help him at least hit the ground running. I think the ceiling for this team is probably 8 wins, 9 wins, with a bowl game, stuff like that in the future with this team, just because it's going to be Mississippi State. It's not Ole Miss. It's not Alabama. It's not LSU. That's just going to be the lid for this team. But it is a good first opportunity. I mean, Power 5 school. You didn't have to go to somewhere else to get this shot.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it's an SEC school too. So, I mean, you get a chance to really – your first go is against the toughest of the tough. So, show what you're made of as a head coach.
Yeah. And I don't think they play each other the next year, do they?
No, the year after. A little more unlikely.
Yeah. So we'll have a chance. We'll see how it goes. Last thing before we hit the NFL, before we hit your thing, before we hit the NFL, as we go into this, is it Daniels Heisman to lose at this point? 5,000 yards, 9 wins, incredible season.
I believe so. I think it's a 2-horse race, and it's Nix or Daniels. I think Daniels probably edges them out, which would be surprisingly, because he does have 3 losses, which is a weird stipulation that these voters put in there for some reason, that they're like, oh, well, you've lost 3 times, so you shouldn't win. But Daniels has just been that dominant.
Yeah, I would look at the difference of talent around Daniels and the talent around Bo Nix. I mean, it's a lot.
And then on top of that, you look at the teams that he's lost to. He's lost to top 25 Ole Miss, top Alabama, and Florida State. That's 3 pretty solid teams.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think Daniels should be the Heisman because he's been the best player. I mean, he leads the nation in total touchdowns. He only has 5 turnovers, and number 1 in QBR and number 1 in quarterback rating.
Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so let's do this blind resume. And if you're in the chat and you're watching this, go ahead and put your prediction before he has the answer in the chat, and we'll see if you can follow along and get an A+ on this like Tubby would.
So these are 2 quarterbacks.
2 quarterbacks.
In college football right now.
Okay.
So first player A had 3,769 yards. Total yards. 41 total touchdowns. 9 total turnovers. He has a completion percentage of 68.6, a QBR of 82.3, and a quarterback rating of 170.1.
Okay.
Then we got player B. He's got 4,033 total yards, 42 touchdowns, 8 total turnovers. He has a completion percentage of 69.3, a QBR of 87.3, and a quarterback rating of 172.
Both Power 5?
Both Power 5.
1 Big 12, 1 Pac-12?
Yep.
Okay, is the second one Dylan Gabriel?
Yep.
Okay, the reason why I knew that one was because of the QB rating. I knew his ranking, where it was going into this weekend. So I was like, okay. The second one, I said Pac-12. How many touchdowns? Could you give me that one more time?
41 total touchdowns.
Oh, man. Pac-12, 41 total touchdowns. It's not Caleb Williams.
It's Caleb Williams.
Is it really? I didn't know. Yep. Okay. All right. I feel pretty good about that. I thought he had more rushing yards than that. That's why I didn't
he only had like 130 some rushing yards, but he had 11 rushing touchdowns.
Okay. That yards is what threw me off because I definitely thought he had more yards than that.
All I got to say is all the OU fans that have dogged Dillon Gabriel the last 2 years should be thankful that we had a guy like Dillon Gabriel the last 2 years, because it shows last year to this year that Gabriel was not the problem. The defense was the problem last year, and we have a better defense this year, and we only lost 2 games. Probably should be undefeated. And Dillon Gabriel, yeah, he did get better over the year, but also it shows Dillon Gabriel was not the issue, and everyone that was calling for his job last year and this year are absolute idiots and shouldn't be calling for his job, because this guy gave everything the last 2 years, and I hope that he plays in the bowl game and that's it and doesn't play football anymore, but I have an inkling that he may follow Levy to Mississippi State.
I can see that too. It could be a good fit. I mean, he could keep going. I don't think there's a whole lot left for him to prove. There's literally his draft stock.
There's really not.
Than it is now, and it's probably not very high.
Not high.
Because his pro stock isn't there. I think literally, if he wants to, it's just to learn the game, learn from a good offensive mind, maybe, and to be a coach in the future. But we've talked about that, already.
Yeah.
I'm just happy I got it. Tim, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here. This is for you today, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I am not an Orange fan, but this is for you because you're such a great listener, man. We appreciate you. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to the NFL, where, yes, we saw the Eagles and we saw the Bills. And the Bills, man, they are just struggle busting hard as the Eagles take them down in overtime. And what I sent you, that was some of the worst effort I've ever seen on a potential tackle to save a game.
Yeah.
To save a game, and you do that was terrible.
Punch at the football. I mean, you didn't move. You see him coming probably 15 yards away from you, and you don't even run towards him to make the tackle.
Pathetic.
And then you had Michael Hyde try to slide tackle. He slid and tried to trip him.
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, it's how realistically in danger are the Bills right now?
I think they're in danger. It's just because I honestly, I don't know what the remainder of their schedule looks like, but I imagine it's tough because all of the AFC East schedules were tough. And so I imagine they don't have the easiest route at the end of the season. And right now you're sitting below a couple of teams too. It's not like, oh, you're just right on the fringe. You're behind like 3 or 4 teams right now in the playoff hunt for the AFC. And on top of that, now that Denver loss looks even, it's even more prevalent now because Denver has won 5 in a row and they put themselves right there on the playoff cusp also. They got to watch out because this is a team that has lost a lot of games that they probably shouldn't have lost, or they've lost games this year that they shouldn't have lost. I mean, you lose week 1 to the Jets when Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. You lose to the Giants. You lost to the Broncos. At that point, we were like, oh, they lost to the Broncos. Broncos have proven that they are maybe a halfway decent team this year. But you've lost games that you probably shouldn't have lost. And then you had every opportunity to win that game in Philadelphia, and you blew it.
Yeah, I think this is a team that hasn't won 2 games or more in a row since week 4. And that's like, oh, this is becoming an issue now. Too many turnovers by Josh Allen. They can't run the ball. They just don't know how to run the ball. But their next 2 weeks are at KC and then against Dallas. So then they're going to have to travel across the country to the Chargers. And that's an evening game, so at least maybe that'll help. And then they get 2 division games to end it. One of them is at Miami at the end of the year. Miami, yes, they did smoke Miami earlier this year. But let's be honest, Miami was probably – we just put up 70 points. We're amazing. No one can stop us. Oh, shoot, we forgot to actually get the game done. Yeah, I think it's crazy to think that they're in the hunt, and with 5 games left, I mean, that's not an easy 5 games.
No. So since 1970, since the merger, there has been 40 teams that had 500 total offensive yards, 10 third down conversions, and a positive turnover margin. The Bills were the first team to ever lose with their stats. All other teams are 39-0. And then also on top of that, Josh Allen is 0-6 in overtime games.
I did see that, yeah. You just can't win.
It seems like he just has that problem where he just cannot win in the crucial moments. You lead the NFL in touchdowns, but yet you also lead the NFL in interceptions. Well, that's a problem.
And I think the point of the overtime is is that window of error is so razor thin
Mm-hmm.
because you may only get the one shot. You may not even get
Yep.
that. Defense doesn't get a stop if you don't get the first shot. But it's so thin, and maybe that's the thing is.
And he missed a wide open Stephon Diggs in the end zone in overtime. He overthrew him, and they settled for the field goal. And what happens? Philadelphia goes down the field, scores a touchdown, ends the game.
Yeah. Well, right now, the teams that they're behind are the Broncos, which you mentioned, the Texans, who just barely lost to the Colts, who they're battling out for that division as well, behind the Jaguars, and then obviously Cleveland and Pittsburgh, who did look. I mean, they didn't put up the points, but they put up the yards after getting rid of that OC. And this team looks like they might be able to get the things rolling. The one thing I'm worried about with the Steelers is like I said, getting the ball in the end zone. Kenny Pickett, since he's been in the league, has not been good at finding the end zone.
Yep. But the one I would say the one big thing about that game was Najee Harris.
Yep.
Looked better than he has the last 2 years. So whether or not the scheme and the way they were running the football was the reason why Najee wasn't playing good, which I don't think Najee has looked explosive since his rookie year, running football-wise, but he looked much better runner than he has at all through the last 2 years in that game. So maybe there's a glimmer of hope for that team that you go, okay, we got this 2 running back tandem now with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris kind of taking over that beater role where he's going to run you over instead of trying to, oh, I got the speed, juke you out of your shoes. He seems like he's kind of taking on this role where, okay, I'm just going to run through you then. If I can't get around you, I'll just run through you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, let's look real quick at that game I just mentioned, the Texans versus the Colts. CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. I mean, this is a duo that looks like it's going to be the Justin Jefferson and the Kirk Cousins before he got hurt. It looks really strong, but they didn't get the win over the Colts. I mean, ultimately, after the Colts made the weirdest move of releasing Leonard, and I know he's had his injuries and stuff like that, but what a weird move! Yeah. I thought it was just a classic Colts move. How do you feel about the game?
I thought it was a great game by Trevor Lawrence the last 2 weeks. We have been talking about Trevor Lawrence, going, man, he just really hasn't performed this year like we expected. Well, the last 2 weeks, he's kind of showed us what we expected from him. And maybe there's something, the offense is finally starting to click towards the end of the season like he did last year and, maybe start sneaking up on a few teams. But I really think that the Texans have a legit chance at playoffs. The way that they have played, and they're going to have an easier schedule than some of these other teams because they are in the AFC South. They are going to have a potential at making the playoffs. And yeah, the Tank Dell and CJ Stroud has the potential to break records, for rookie tandem, the wide receiver quarterback. I know Stroud's on pace to break Andrew Luck's passing record, quarterback, passing record rookie. And then, like I said, Tank Dell, he's everything that I thought he was going into this draft. The kid knows how to run routes. He's fast, and as small as he is, that guy goes up and fights for the football.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's awesome. It's the opposite of Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, and Quentin Johnston's 6'4", 200-some pounds, and you've got a 5'8", 170, 180-pound Tank Dell going up to fight for the football, but Quentin Johnston can't do that. Yeah. He gets shot in the ribs, and he's like, "Oh, I'm hurt. I gotta go to the sideline."
Yeah. But Tank Dell probably has always had that chip on his shoulder too, because he's probably been undersized. So
yeah.
But to mention the Texans, Denver, Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans again, and Colts. There's some wins in there. They're probably going to lose probably one of those games to the Titans just because it's an opponent in 3 weeks. But this is a team.
Will Levis and that offense looks. I mean, they were able to get Derrick Henry in the offense in the end zone a couple times, but that offense is bad.
Yeah, 100% accurate. We definitely, some people bought early on Will Levis and really are like, ooh, what's the return policy look like on this? Yeah,
I don't trust anyone that puts mayo in their coffee.
Yeah, that was red flag, dude. What disgusting. Someone I tried and I'm like, you gotta stop. And they took like 4 sips. I'm like, no, it's gonna be terrible.
Nope.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, the Broncos continue to roll. I mean, how realistic is their playoff chances are you seeing for them? I mean, they are just on the outside right now, behind the Texans as the next spot. But what do you think?
I mean, their wins haven't been fluky. That's the thing right now. They have beat good teams. It's not like they've just beat up on some bad teams and won few in a row. No, they have beat they beat the Bills, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Vikings, who have played better even with Kirk Cousins out. You beat the Browns, and the Browns have been playing good football. The defense have been playing good, and I think they have a really decent shot at making the playoffs right now. The way they have played, I mean, they almost beat the Chiefs the first time they played them. They beat the Packers, and you're like, oh, well, they beat the Packers. Well, now you look at what the Packers have done since then. They've played, really good football. So it's kind of, I think we all joked at the beginning of the year, and we're like, man, this team is just the worst team. You give up 70 points in a game, and you're like, there's no way this team is good. Something's clicked at that defense, and that defense has played hard-nosed, tough defense since then. It's almost like they took it personal, which is good because they needed to. They took it personal, and Russell Wilson's played good. They've gotten Javonte Williams incorporated into that offense more. Outside of running the football, been throwing the ball more. So I think this is a dangerous team right now with the way that defense is playing.
Yeah, I look at their schedule. They got 3 straight road games, which are tough, and I think they're gonna probably go 1-2, and they're gonna hope to go 2-1. But it's at Houston, at the Chargers. I think that's a win, especially with that team is rolling right now. That guy's about to be fired. At the Lions, and then the end of the year is a winnable schedule. But those next 3 games are going to tell a lot about what this team can look like with their actual playoff potential here. But
yeah, if you can go 2-1 in those games, I mean, the Texans will be a tough one. And honestly, right now, I don't think the Lions are playing that good football. And so the way they've played, that could be, you could go up Detroit and knock them off, because Bears almost knocked them off a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago. So I think that they're kind of scuffling right now.
Well, let's talk about it. Something's never changed on Thanksgiving. Your Packers dominate the Lions. I mean, the Lions did try to have an outside shot at the very end, but they just wasn't happening. Packers now 5-6. They're the 8th seed. They're just on the outside looking in. Are you holding out hope right now for the playoffs as a Packer fan?
I am, actually. I feel like the end of this season, you've got one really tough game, and that's this coming week against the Chiefs, which I 100% believe they'll lose. But after that, you've got a pretty winnable schedule, and you look at the teams that are ahead of them, like the Seahawks. Seahawks have a tough schedule the next couple weeks, where the Packers really could make a dent and put themselves in the playoffs. Everyone that gave up on Jordan Love too early are now eating their words, because Jordan Love has looked really good the last few weeks, and he seems like that Matt LaFleur has kind of trusted him more to throw the football more, and it seems like they have gotten this offense moving. Jaden Reed has become from what they've said, the alpha dog in the wide receiver room, and it's shown the last few weeks. The kid has went out there and put up numbers and balled out. We need Aaron Jones back. That's going to be a big thing, but A.J. Dillon, for the most part, has played decent. This week wasn't too fantastic, but really he's played better football over the last few weeks, and the defense seems like it's kind of getting a little bit more of an edge to him. And you'll get Eric Stokes. It sounds like Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, and Darnell Savage will all be back this week against the Chiefs, so that's always good. I feel like the way the schedule plays out right now, they have a legit chance to maybe lose 2 of these games and win the rest.
It's pretty good. I mean, that's 11. That's 10-8. No, 9-8, and that's
9-8.
One of those games against the Vikings, who are just above them right now, so that can help too.
But I think the Seahawks are the team that they need to chase down. I think the Seahawks are kind of fumbling around. Geno's not healthy. I'm pretty sure they got the Cowboys, 49ers, and Eagles their next 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, if I saw right this earlier today. So those are 3 games that realistically I don't think they win any of those. Maybe they could beat the Cowboys if the Cowboys don't show up.
Too.
Yeah. So there's potentially they lose 3 or 4 in a row. Could, put the Packers in good position to nab that last playoff spot.
Yeah. And then does it even matter that the Falcons are the 4 seed at 5-6?
We knew it was going to happen.
100% called it. The division's gross. Nobody wants to win it. But giving the ball to your first round pick. I mean, so what an idea.
I know. Who would have thought? We drafted a running back 8th, but I think we'll decide, week 11, we'll go ahead and start giving them the football more.
Yeah. After 3 straight losses, 4 out of 5 losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But realistically, they get the Jets this week, then then they get the Bucks, and then Panthers, Colts, Bears. This team 9 wins is realistic for this team, as bad as they are right now. Mm-hmm. But if not, we could have a division winner again from the same division. No, not the same. Is it?
Yeah. Okay. Buccaneers last year were 8-9.
That's right. So this division is the worst right now in football, and it's showing. It's so funny and I think if you win the division, you should get a top 4 seed. But this is when it looks bad. When the Cowboys are at 8-3, stomp the Redskins, stomp the Washington Commanders. I almost said football team on Thanksgiving Day, and they're 8-3 in the 5 seed.
Yep, just like last year.
Hey, you gotta win the division. So Cowboys continue another pick 6.
I'm bland. I mean, you just set the NFL record. Who would have thought Trevon Diggs getting hurt would set up your backup quarterback to set an NFL record for most interceptions returned for touchdowns?
It's absolutely wild. And you think it's not Diggs, and Diggs was the guy who was doing it last time. So you look at this team. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I think
the 49ers are the other team at the top in the NFC. Mm-hmm. We talked about the Eagles a little bit. We talked about the Falcons, the number 4 seed, but above them is the 49ers. The 49ers had that 3-game losing streak, then go into the bye week, and since then, man, they've been just shutting some teams down. And Christian McCaffrey is on a roll. Brock Purdy seems like he's at least figured things out. This weekend's game against the Eagles, how big of a game is this?
This is a massive game. If they want to have any chance of taking home field advantage away from them, they have to win this game, because you drop another game, you're down now not just 3 games, you're down 4 games essentially because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. So for you to have a chance to somehow steal away home field advantage from these Eagles, you have to beat them this week.
Yeah, 8-3, 10-1. The Lions are right behind the 49ers. We said this before also. They're not playing their best football, but they're 8-3. So just to give themselves the higher seed on them, they still have to win this game. Mm-hmm. Absolutely important on that one. And I can't believe this is the 3:25 game. It's America's big game of the week or whatever, but you think that this would get flexed into the Sunday night football game.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with the Eagles-Bills game. Like, it wasn't even on local channels here.
Yeah, that is weird.
We had to use friends.
It's the Packers
season tickets.
Is the evening game, and that's
too
much. I mean, they're not much bigger markets. I mean, Philadelphia and San Francisco had huge markets, so I guess it's a win-win for the NFL either way. But you just would have thought it would be that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Here we are. Ravens, the number 1 team in the AFC. I don't think anyone had this as the number 1 seed right now, but forced 4 turnovers, and the Chargers head coach is seconds away from being fired, I feel like.
I don't know how he didn't get fired last night.
I know.
I don't know how you let him out of the locker room or let him out of the stadium, let alone without firing him.
Yeah. Absolutely. That team is the Chargers right now. I look at Justin Herbert, I just see Philip Rivers. I mean, that's 100% wasted, really top potential quarterback. It's a team that they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the offense had gotten better for the most part this year, but it's Brandon Staley's decision-making as the head coach has just been so head-scratching each year that you're just like, when is enough enough? At least Marty Schottenheimer took you to the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean,
Eckler's been really bad this year. Joshua Kelly hasn't done much as a backup. Keenan Allen's
Allen's the only bright side of that offense.
And Justin Herbert's been sacked 25 times. That's a lot of times to be sacked. So, especially with a team that at 4-7 is a massive, massive disappointment with the talent, the skill positions, all the things that are on this team.
I mean, Keenan Allen literally has no help. Mike Williams gets hurt week 1.
Yeah, obviously.
And You drafted Quentin Johnson in the first round, and he looks like one of the worst rookie wide receivers in the NFL this year. He's had one game in his career where he's had over two catches and 20 yards in the same game. Austin Eckler,
terrible.
Yeah, right.
So this is what he did in college, though. We shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. No, we 100% expected this. He's exactly who I comped him out in the draft. It's Kevin White. He is this big, strong receiver that gets hurt too easy and can't catch the football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he literally dropped the game for them against the Packers last week. I mean, literally dropped the game. Had a wide open catch, would have at least got you to the 20-yard line, chip shot for Dicker the kicker to win the ball game.
Yeah. Real quick side note: the Bears-Vikings are playing right now. It's in the second quarter with 12 minutes left. It's 3-0 Bears. Dude, time of possession. Just take a guess.
Oh man,
it's not close. I just need you to know that.
The Bears just absolutely controlling the football and run game.
Bears have 14 minutes, 46 seconds of possession. The Vikings have 2 minutes and 48 seconds.
Holy smokes,
dude! I looked at the plays. Fields is like 13 to 14, and they have 6 rush attempts. And then I looked at the Vikings. Dobbs is 0 for 1 with a sack for 8 yards, and then Madison, Dobbs, and Chandler all have 1 rush apiece for 11 yards total. Oh, okay.
What?
And it's 3-0.
And it's only 3-0.
And Vikings have the ball again. I don't know what to do. Fields has also been sacked twice for 17 yards. So this is just hilarious. All right, so Chiefs did bounce back in this game. They look a little bit better. Rashee Rice seems to be the one guy that it looks like there's trust now there for Mahomes. A lot of teams are just doubling Kelsey, and they're doubling Kelsey especially in the red zone. And it's I think that is one of the biggest culprits to the Chiefs struggling in the second half or in the red zone to get the ball in the end zone. So it's nice to see Pacheco as well, because there's no
the answer.
It looks like they're starting to figure some stuff out. I'm still a little concerned because really, really good teams are going to be able to strategize against this later in the year, and they're going to pivot from this new thing that the Chiefs are doing. And I don't know that the Chiefs have the pivot back after teams readjust to this new scheme and setup that they have. So a little worried about that, but I mean, still Patrick Mahomes, and there's not a lot of good quarterbacks out there right now.
Yeah. I think right now they have to. I think Pacheco has to be the answer in the red zone. If teams are doubling Travis Kelce, give it to Pacheco, because you know that dude's going to run a million miles an hour head first into whatever's in front of him. It don't matter if it's a brick wall, a semi truck coming at him at 70 miles an hour. The dude's going to try to run through it. So at least give him the football and when you're that close in the red zone. And maybe it gives them enough time to scheme some things for Rashee Rice towards the end of the season when teams start to try to take that away too. Because I really do think Rashee Rice is by far the best wide receiver on that team, and it's not close. I mean, I haven't seen anything from anyone else really. I mean,
it's been terrible.
The Kadarius Toney thing has just absolutely played out the way I think some people expected. And Mecole Hardman's already on the IR.
Mm-hmm.
Sky Moore, same thing.
Why you trade for Mecole Hardman when you already know what he is? This is so stupid.
Right. Yeah, so it's just kind of they're going to have to find a way to, like you said, pivot. And I think the answer will have to be Rashee Rice towards the end of the season. He's going to have to step up and be that guy that they can go to when they need to.
Yeah. Well, one of the last notes that we got here is on the hot seat. We talked about the Chargers, but Frank Wright's already gone. Rookie year for Bryce Young, 1-10 start. They're like, wiping our hands of this, and we're going to start over right now. Mm-hmm. I think this is a stupid decision. I get Frank Wright might not have been the right hire in the first place. This is a dumb decision because this is a rookie quarterback with a bad team. It's going to be bad. And here's my biggest feedback. I think this is a part of the problem. And Tom Brady went on a massively awesome rant that I think I sent you that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Thought it was awesome. Obviously, he's listening to the W Sports Podcast. Tom Brady, Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. He talks about how there's not any development. There's really bad coaching, and they're not just doing what they used to do. This is an example of that. And the Packers are the example of what they used to do. And I know we've written Jordan Love off, and now we're writing him back in the book because it's working. Say what you will, and you sent me this thing about Jordan Love. Him and Aaron Rodgers' not rookie years, but their first year starting looks a little bit similar. And if you think about what they've done, and I think about the Cardinals and how there's the Cardinal way, this is the
Yeah.
Packer way. And I say what you will, but right now Jordan Love looks better and in a better position to actually succeed through the highs and lows than a guy like Bryce Young does. When you fire his coach, 11 games, 3 months into the season, you fire his head coach and you're going to start over with someone brand new. I think it's a recipe for him to be wasted. And here's the thing. We didn't think that he was going to be the best quarterback in this draft class anyway, but clearly someone in Carolina did. And this is just stupid. And I get the NFL is not for long. That's what it could stand for. This is where they have to fix it because they're oversaturated with all the analytics and the quick triggers. Sometimes you got to stay the course.
Yeah. I mean, because you look at that team and they really offensive-wise, you have nothing.
You got nothing. Adam Thielen is your best receiver, and
he's old.
You signed him for pennies on the dollar. Like,
and I mean, you paid Miles Sanders $11 million to sit on the sideline. That's on you as the GM and the owner for making these decisions. Yeah, you are 1-10 at this point, and now you are going to have to hit a home run at head coaching to not waste what could potentially be Bryce Young being a good NFL quarterback. And you have to figure out who that guy is going to be. I know Frank Wright wasn't the first option, and I don't know if he was the second, preferred option for them. They really wanted Ben Johnson, the OC in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 year removed, they're able to land the guy, and he's able to maybe work wonders, kind of like he did with Jared Goff. But at this point, you just set your guy back because now you don't even have a first round pick this year to help build early on when you need position players, and you have one of the best wide receiver drafts you will probably see in years. And we've had some really good ones the last, like 5-6 years. This one has the potential to be the best of the best because you've got 4 or 5 guys that are legit number one wide receivers in this draft class, and you won't get a single one of them. You've got 3 really good offensive linemen that you need. You won't get a single one of them because you jumped the gun 1 year early. Because if you don't make that trade, you still have DJ Moore. Mm-hmm. You have the number 1 pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
It just was bad management and bad GM play for the Panthers, and now it's even worse.
Yeah. Well, it's bad. There's nothing else you can say about it, and it's bad. And look, well, that I think it pretty much wraps up the show. I mean, did we miss anything else? I mean, we got a lot we hit today. And yes, if you're listening, you're like, man, I really wanted to know about what the free agency and some of the moves that are going on in the NFL. Don't worry, we're going to head over to YouTube right now. We're going to have some bonus podcast content over there. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show over on YouTube. You can find us at the W Sports Podcast or follow us on social media anywhere. You're going to be able to get the podcast as it's streamed. We would love to have you all jump in the chat each and every week because your questions, your thoughts, your comments are always makes this really entertaining and fun for us. We really appreciate it. But till then, we're going to see y'all next week.
See ya.
All right. I'm done. I hit that one. There we go. 122. Let's put that. Okay. All right. So let's hit it. We're having some moves finally happen. It's slow. It feels slower than it should be for baseball.
Yeah, it's being slow paced. I think everyone's waiting for the Ohtani bomb.
Yeah, when is that going to happen?
They said it was going to be before winter meeting, so I imagine the next week or so is my guess. But the thing is I don't know if you saw where he said he's going to meet with teams, and it's going to be in secret, where if anything gets leaked out from within that organization or those beat writers or whatever, that it could impact his decision on coming to your team. So I think that's maybe why it's been so hush-hush of what's going on right now with him, because he wants it to be so private, and maybe these guys are worried, well, I don't want to be the one writer that, screws this up for the team that I write for, and then maybe get left out to dry and have to go find a new city.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Look at that. He's carrying, dude. He carries so much power. I don't know what he's doing. Like,
oh yeah,
let's do. Make sure that's muted real quick.
I mean,
the other one is going to be the Japanese pitcher Yamamoto. I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
that. I'll try his first name.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yes. So it looks like he's gonna take his time as a decision. So I think part of that, again, he wants to see where some of the other players are going. I'm still holding out a Hail Mary pass here if I'm Alabama. He's going to go to the Cardinals. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they've spent their ace money already. But based off what I think he's going to get, I think it's going to be 6 figures is what some people have reported. And the Cardinals have literally not done that as a free agent. So I don't see it happen.
Yeah, I've heard somewhere around he's going to be close to the 200.
Yeah.
After what Snell got, they think it'll be higher than what Snell got. Or Nola, I mean.
I was going to say, wait, what'd Snell get? I missed that.
No, I mean Nola.
Yeah, Nola got 175 at 7 years at the age that he's at. So
yeah, and so they're saying it's going to be 200, north of 200. It's going to be one of the highest international signings ever.
Good for him. Good for him.
Which
I think some of the scare for the international signings is going away, and that's helpful.
Yeah, especially Japanese. The way that they have performed in like the World Baseball Classics, and the way that these guys have come over in the years and have performed in the major leagues. And if the guy is as dominant as he has been over there, the dude has. I mean, we know the numbers will probably get a little bit worse, but if he's anywhere close to what he was in that Japanese league, that guy is a start front of the line rotation guy. I mean, look at Kodai Senga. I mean, Senga was absolutely incredible this year. Yep. He's one of the few bright spots of the Mets. Yeah, Mets season this year, and that was his first year. I would imagine year 2 is going to be even better for the guy, and he's supposed to be better than Kodai Senga. So the potential with this kid, and he's like 25 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it could be a massive signing for whoever gets him. The potential is definitely there. Did you hear the rumors about Jordan Montgomery in Boston?
No, I didn't hear that one.
So he off season is going to be in Boston, which I didn't realize that until I realized that. But his wife is doing residency there, I think is what it was, or something like that. What is it? His wife begins her dermatology residency in the Boston area. So I think East Coast might have a leaning factor for this, although he's on the road a lot, but that could play a huge part of it. So the Yankees has been linked to him a little bit, even though they dealt him in the past. He has this familiarity with him, but we'll see.
Why not the Red Sox? I mean, they need starting pitching too, so
they definitely do.
Why not go to the team that didn't trade you at the deadline because they didn't think that they needed you when it came playoff time? And all Jordan Montgomery has done since then has been one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball, and then just went into the playoffs and had the playoff.
Yeah, why not back to the Cardinals? That's what I want.
I mean, Why go to the Yankees when they just traded you for Harrison Bader?
I know, who they don't have anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you don't hold grudges and stuff, but at that point, I'm kind of like, you wrote me off. You traded me at the deadline because you said I wasn't good enough for you when it come playoff time.
Yeah.
And all he's done in the playoffs is pitched good the last few years, and he's pitched really consistent the last year, 2 years. Why would I go back to you when you wrote me off, and when I can possibly go to Boston and just show you up, a couple times a year?
Yeah. So I have 2 other ones I want to hit, unless you have any other ones. But the big one for me is if you had any more reason to not like Juan Soto, the fact that he might become a Yankee, as they will swing big for him and his left-handed at bat in that field. I mean, I don't think they really need outfield help, but I know that they're tired of the DH spot taken up, so they wanted to have someone who could play the outfield. I mean, how realistic is this as a destination for him?
It'd be interesting to see what they're willing to give up, because I imagine the Padres are going to want to replenish quite a bit of what they gave up for the guy. I mean, it sounds like I've read a couple things where it is very realistic he gets traded in December at the winter meetings. If not, he gets traded for sure at midway through the season at the deadline. But it would be a very interesting spot. It would finally give Judge some help offensive wise that he's missed the last couple of years, where if you just walk Judge, no one else can do anything, which I don't understand why teams haven't figured this out. I mean, I'm setting records. If I'm a team, I'm not pitching to him once, because I know Rizzo hasn't, every once in a while he'll hit a home run, or Stanton can't stay on the field. No other offensive weapon there. I'll walk him every single at bat. I don't care if it's boring or not. I ain't letting the one guy beat me. So maybe at least it gives them somewhat of a security blanket, put them in front of them so they can't just walk Judge every single time.
Yeah. The last one is Alex Bregman, the possibility that he does not start the season as an Astro. That is starting to catch the fire. There's smoke there. How realistic do you think that is?
I don't think it's very realistic at all.
You don't think so? You don't think they're ready to move? There's some people on the inside at Houston, on the beat writer side, that have seen those signs of smoke. I'm just saying, there's multiple.
I don't know. I don't feel like that. I think that may be more smoke than anything, just because we're not the biggest fans of Bregman. We don't think that the hype is really there, but he does show up during the postseason. He has had huge moments for them in the postseason, whether or not they cheated and everything. But I feel like he's so much in tune into that team that really, what are you going to replace him with?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. The thought is that they haven't spent big on a free agent since like Carlos Lee in 2007, and so they're not expecting a six-figure salary for him. Like wanting to do that, and that's probably what he's going to command. I think that is the thing that's pushing the narrative the most. And if you do trade him, the Astros can develop and do what they're doing. But I think the Astros right now, what we're seeing is a tipping point in their window. It looks like it might be coming to a close a little bit quicker than what fans are ready for. And this is what kind of happens if you're not careful, and if you don't. I mean, they've been good for a decade now, after being bad for a decade, but. You got to wonder, is it going to turn into another bad 6-7 years to reset, or are they going to be able to find a way to keep it afloat?
Yeah. No, now I should say off-season wise, I don't think I think that it's just smoke right now. Now, maybe mid-season if they are having a rough year, because they, like you said, they do have some older guys on this team, and you have a lot of younger guys that are they really that good? You don't have a very good farm system. You traded away to your best farm, prospects this year to get Verlander and a couple of these other guys. So you are at this point now where you have to kind of figure something out. Can we make maybe one more run? But if they start out slow and maybe they're just hovering around playoffs, maybe they do sell them at trade deadline. And because eventually you're going to have to pay Yordan Alvarez. You're going to have to pay a couple of these pitchers that you have on this team. Kyle Tucker, his contract's going to be up here soon too. You're going to have to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you willing to go? And if I'm them, I'd much rather keep Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker and Christian Javier and those guys like that than I would Bregman, because I think they said Bregman had a solid year this year, but I still feel like the hype for Bregman of being one of the best third basemen in baseball is crazy because,
if you're going to pick one team to swing and miss this offseason, who do you think it's going to be? I know it's really hard to just throw that out there, but I want to know, who do you think? Because I have a team.
We're talking free agency wise.
Free agency, winter meetings. It's just going to be like, hey, we're going to make moves, swing and a miss.
I'm going to go with the Giants again.
That's true.
I feel like
who I was picking.
Yeah, I mean they're like, oh, we're going to outbid the Dodgers for Shohei and all these guys. We've seen it year in year out. I just don't think that. I think a lot of these guys look at it and go, yeah, you're giving me the money, but are you really giving me guys around me that can win?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest issue, especially when it comes to Shohei. Why would you want to go to the Giants with that team where they've ragtagged, some wins, 80 wins here and there, a couple years ago, 100 wins, but they're not that good of a team. They're just not there. And why would you go there and have no one around you really to help you or protect you in that lineup when you could go to a team like the Rangers or the Dodgers or the Cubs or, the Red Sox, the Braves, these teams that are being thrown out there that have more options there that can give you a much better chance at winning.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I agree.
Yeah.
We're going to see how it goes. Winter meetings start on the 4th this year. So next week we'll have our episode. We're going to be breaking down all things college football playoffs because it's going to happen. Greg just put in the chat, the Cards going to be better next year. They can't be any worse, man. 20 games under 500. Signed Sunday Gray today. I think it was a good signing. It's not the ace that they need. I love the question because I love talking Cardinals baseball.
So we talked about this today, though. We texted back and forth. That I think the Sonny Gray deal is a lot better than what the Phillies got with Aaron Nola.
absolutely.
I mean,
When I saw that, no, I was like, Cardinals weren't going to be in that ballpark.
yeah. Gray is 34 years old, but he's coming off two of the best years of his career. And you look at what Nola's done the last couple of years. This year's numbers were so much worse above what his career numbers were. And now you give him 7 years. He'll be 37 by the end. Still, the same AVV or the AAV, the average per. But I'd much rather take a Sonny Gray who has aged better than what Aaron Nola has done for a couple of years, because at least it's only 3 years, and it'd be easier to trade him than it is Aaron Nola, where if he's is bad the next couple of years, you've got 5 years that you have to try to offload to someone. It's going to make it a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see how it goes. Look forward to next week's episode with College Football Playoff. We're going to be able to talk about it, talk about some conference championship games, more NFL news, more baseball signings, hopefully.
Hopefully we see the big domino drop, then everything just starts going.
You say that because you want to be a Dodger, but anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But till then, guys, we appreciate you all jumping in the chat, hanging out with us. We look forward to every single Monday night with you all, and we'll see y'all next week.
See you next week.